Limnology ladies and grey water guys. Settle down into your bed slope. Use caution when approaching the cascade. And so she said to me, "That's not my discharge basin." And I said to her, "Those are my phytoplankton."
It's time to talk Tull to me. Are you beginning to regret our life choices at this point?
Oh, beginning, continuing. Welcome back to the podcast. I am Omen Thomas Sade of Sealand.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Moans.
And this, my little inner tubes, is Talk Tull to me.
A musical meander through the restoration zone of prog rock, in which Netwater Nick and Oxbow Omen will chart a hydrograph for the flow of each and every track that rip-rap rock band Jethro Tull have ever washed down into the weirs of our ears. From the salt marshes of stand-up to the .com dike, we will wade through the brackish beats and sandy solos of the dozens of musicians who have made up the torrent of Tull. And if we can maintain a minimum of turbidity, avoid the vortex rocks, and whisper into our weep hole, we may yet taste the pristine waters of the scouring Scotsman, the clay bank composer, the evaporative elocutionist, a man with so much surface tension that you could walk right across him with a pair of snowshoes, Ian Anadromous Anderson.
Who told you about my weep hole? How do you know these things?
I had a fun time looking up hydrological terms. Hydrological.
There was a lot. There was a lot going on in there.
Yeah.
It was nice. It lifts the brow of the podcast a little bit. You know, now when scientists listen to this episode, this is the first episode they listen to. They hear that, they're like, we're in for a treat. This is going to be great.
We know our crowd.
Yeah. Poop jokes, wiener jokes. Yeah.
And science.
And science.
Speaking of which, Nick, splish, splash, what are we listening to in today's podcast?
We are getting ankle deep into Nightcap this week. We are on track number 5 off of disc 2. This is Silver River Turning. Silver River Turning.
Let's turn that disc and have a listen.
Listen up. Omen.
Nick McGill.
That was the first time you've ever heard that song. Silver River Turning.
That sure was. I just can't believe, on some level, that we've been listening to Tull since we were teenagers. And there is still material that we haven't heard.
Yeah.
At least that I haven't heard. You know, like being able to still be making new discoveries of songs. Oh, wow. What a cool thing.
Yeah, we picked the best band, I think. I mean, just the plethora of content.
At least the most prolific.
Fair enough. Output does not equal quality, but it's pretty good.
In this case, there is an overlap.
Yeah.
I feel confident in saying this is a spectacular song. Of course, this is Nightcap is made up of things that were recorded at various times and places. This was recorded in 1990 at Ian Anderson's home studio. It features Martin Barr on electric guitar, Dave Pegg on the bass, Doane Perry on drums and percussion, and John Rabbit Bundrick on the piano and the Hammond organ.
So the same lineup that we heard last week. Same team.
Right. Now, I think that there may be... It sounds to me like there could possibly be some other keyboard work going on in there.
on top of, or in addition to piano and organ?
That's what it sounds like, but I don't see anything listed, and so it could just be that the organ was on a very synthy setting.
It seems very synthy in this one. It does. It's Cynthia for sure.
Yeah.
Just a note, just something I noticed today, that Nightcap was 93. That was the release in the UK. It didn't come to the States until 2000. It wasn't released over here until 7 years later.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were freshmen in high school.
In high school, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what the choice was to only release it over in the UK.
I imagine that choice is not so prevalent nowadays. You know, it's like you can get anything shipped anywhere. You get digital half the time, you know, so it's just like, well, it's available.
Yeah.
These people will carry it here. You can order it from the UK or wait another week and then it'll be available in the States. I feel like it's much more like global economy now, as opposed to back then. It was like, well, who really gives a shit about some Tull deep cut tracks? Probably the Brits.
What the Americans don't know about won't hurt them.
Right. They're blissfully ignorant.
Speaking of bliss, let's talk about this track. You know, I never know what to expect when listening to a new Tull track, but for some reason I thought that this would be maybe a little bit more contemplative. I had read the lyrics and thought that maybe it was going to be a little bit of a sad boy song.
Okay.
But it rocks. It throws rocks at the windows of sadness.
It lets the light in.
I hope sadness has insurance, because this song is gonna get it wrecked.
Bunch of hooligans throwing rock music.
This song burned itself down for the insurance money. Okay, I'm done.
So pleasant surprise.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, really rocking, really solid song. The beginning, that really slow, like, ba, ba, da, ba, 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 with the
Such a beautiful theme.
the plinky on the organ. It reminds me a lot of, cast your memory back, Omen, to when we covered Coronach, the song from 1986.
Sure.
It's the Hero Run Hero, that one.
Yeah.
That soft lilting part reminds me of that so much. When they pick up, not so much, but those two soft moments that we have in the beginning and at around just before 4 minutes.
The bridge.
Very much reminds me of that.
There's some great things with this. In that early section, Ian has what do you call it? He has an echo effect on the flute.
Oh, I didn't notice.
And I think it's echoing, almost 2 or 3 times. Or possibly he overdubbed it, and played 2 different tracks. But it seems to be on a delay. You hear the flute and then you hear it a second later. And that combined with that piano gives a very emotional and clean and kind of memory-inducing feeling to it.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really poignant.
And it's a great way to set up the song. Now, this is one that you've listened to, obviously, for a while.
A few times, yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I like this one a lot. I think it's super catchy. I love those really soft moments, but musically, it's really solid. It's a great bass song. Peggy is super prominent in this one, I think, a lot, and it's really nice to hear that. I don't know if it's just the mixing or what it seemed, but he's very clear, and it's a great one. This is one that even if I'm listening to this album in the background, when this one comes on, I find myself singing to it a little bit. That chorus, and Ian is in great voice here too, which really helps. He's so comfortable. Yeah, it's real nice.
It's fabulous. I wonder what his home studio is like, or what it was like in 1990. I wonder what his preference is, or if, I'm sure as a musician, different studios have a different feel to them, and there were some of them that we can remember various bandmates complaining about bitterly and saying this one was horrible, and this one was a horrible bassman, this one was a little bit nicer, and
right.
It'd be interesting to know what his, what the vibe is at Studio Anderson.
Especially because, I mean, at 90, he's had several iterations of studios at this point, probably in several.
Oh, yeah.
Several iterations of home studios in several different homes at this point. So I'm sure he's updated technology. He's really, really kitted everything out. So I'm sure at this point he's a pro at getting his studio where he's comfortable with it.
I imagine it also has some manly touches. Like, I imagine that they're all playing and there's just a massive elk head watching them.
Yes, with a deerstalker hat and a big old pipe hanging out of it.
Yeah. And the elk is saying, "Take it one more time, boys.
Don't do that, David. Take it again."
Martin, you rushed the measure there in the breakdown. Oh, get me more feed.
What would you feed a moose in captivity?
Brandy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they like.
Either like port as well.
Yeah, we have it on good authority. At about 33 seconds in, the drum, guitars, and bass come plowing in, just perfectly aligned, and cut through all of that beautiful tension that Ian and Mr. Rabbit have made with the introduction. It really just rocks from there.
Yeah, for a while. We get a breakdown at about 2:30 that's still rocking. The bass is awesome in that one. I really, really like the bass and the synth.
Yes.
They work so well together in that. And then looks like about 3:45. That's when we get, it's not quite your classic Tull like pseudo ending, but it goes from that loud rocking, pulls back into the quiet, the nice soft that we heard in the beginning, and then it kind of builds up a little bit into a crescendo and then goes out again.
But I need that Tull.
I love how the bridge takes the theme that was laid out in the intro and actually takes it a step further, develops it a little bit more. It's not just a repeat of the same musical sequence. It is a furthering of it. It's an evolution of it.
Yeah. It builds upon it. I mean, it's classic Tull at this point, like taking it and sharing the burden of making it better by everybody just like kicking it up a notch by 2 steps, and then it's rocking. It's awesome.
Speaking of classic Tull, there are a couple things that stuck out to me as kind of Tull hallmarks.
Okay. Tull marks.
Just got a late rejection to face reality and stare it down. We have Martin and the bass and the drums going dum 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 dum. They kind of they're here and they drop down. Ba bow bow.
I just got a late reaction, face reality and stare it down. Sometimes
We hear the same gesture in Still Loving You Tonight. Bum bum bum. Too much of a good thing can make you crazy.
There you go.
It was a good thing. It just precedes that part.
too much of a good thing can make you crazy.
But we've heard that in a number of different songs. It's kind of it's part of the language of Tull. I think that the more I listen to this, the more I think that every band develops their own sonic language and sonic syntax and grammar. We're really now starting to talk Tull.
It's about time. Especially, it's really interesting now because we've taken this journey pretty solidly chronologically, but every now and then we are interspersing it, particularly now the most. We're interspersing it with let's go and back and listen to a song from 86 and listen to a song from 90 and then listen to a song from 75.
Yeah.
After we've already covered all of these eras, it's a nice refresher to go back and hear something from that era, but it's also like, oh yeah, that is from this, that led to this, and that's where this came from.
The Tull tapestry is a piece of art that is woven in multiple dimensions and directions at once.
Yeah. I mean, you've said multiple times that we're a little bit at a disadvantage because of this chronology. We're so far removed from some of these times, these albums, these specific songs, that we do kind of miss out on certain things. They're not so fresh in our minds. And that's usually when someone, a tall skull from the audience, will chime in with like a really great tidbit or correlation. But we do have that here too.
Yeah. We are merely the fruiting body of an organism which 95% of which is underground in a mycelial Tull network.
Right. We just project the spores.
That's all we're doing. We're just projecting spores. I've said it so many times.
Omen.
Yeah.
I have a tiny little email from Return Writer Inner.
Here's your microscope so you can read your message.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that.
I polished it with a bowl of moss.
I'm really pleased with your work ethic lately. You go above and beyond. I mean, scrawling this email onto a single grain of rice was just, I mean, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
The tension it took me to focus that hard has now been released. I shall see ye when I live in the walls.
Who's going to clean up after her, though? That's the that's the problem.
Yeah, who cleans the cleaner?
That's it. Yeah, it's
no one judging by the
philosophical, really. So
Yeah.
we have an email submission from Dr. Pete Pollywog III.
Dr. Pete Pollywog, yes, thank you so much for rejoining us.
Writes back in with subject, fun party trick. The next time you find yourself with a little free time on your hands, invest 2 hours or so in memorizing The Hare Who Lost His Spectacles. Then the next time you're in a social setting and there's a lull in conversation, you can recite it. Your friends will be confused and amazed at the same time. I tried it last weekend at a bonfire that I was invited to, and it was a huge hit. After my recitation, there was an awkward silence. No one knew what to say or do. The only response came from a fellow partygoer across the fire who uttered in a hushed voice, "B doesn't know shit." I think this party trick ranks right up there with bringing and passing out small cigars. All the best, Dr. Pete.
Dr. Pete, thank you. I think that you should write a book of party tricks. I mean, if that's any indication, I think that you have something to share and the world needs to know it.
And you can release each chapter in drips and drabs through the podcast.
I also think that you have hit upon something in society that I mourn, which is the loss of the tradition of poetry recitations.
That died after the beat poets, probably. What was that, the 50s, 60s?
I think it died after the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, now you can just read poems on the internet.
If you can read.
Or watch cat videos.
Oh, I do like a cat video. But reciting a cat video at a party is less interesting.
The cat paws into a paper bag. The paper bag rustles. You should write a poem about a cat video. I think that'd be real good.
Yeah, I've often said that the modern Wordsworths of the world are cat vloggers.
Mm-hmm. TikTok videos.
If I've said it once, I've said it a million times.
You've said it once, though. So, I mean, it's at least a million times.
The insulation is tasty!
Oh, Mary. No. Not cotton candy. It's not cotton candy.
Get the spray or you'll have a cold winter.
Omen.
Nick.
This is Silver River turning. And I thought,
Yeah.
Silver River, is that something?
Oh, is it?
There is a Silver River in Florida, actually. It's a teeny tiny little river. Yeah.
What color is it?
Turquoise, probably. There's also a film, a Warner Brothers film from 1948 starring Errol Flynn called Silver River.
Oh, interesting. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, it's a Western. He stars as an army captain in the Civil War. The synopsis sounds a little bananas, and I am kind of intrigued to watch this.
Yeah.
Now that I read it, I'm going to have to find it.
I do enjoy an Errol Flynn film, even though he was a bad man.
Yeah, I remember you're saying that. I can't imagine there's much swashbuckling in this one, though.
Yeah, probably regular buckling.
Just regular buckles, yeah.
So, Nick, this song, let's talk about it. Silver River could refer to a specific geographical location, or it could be more mythical. It could be referring to the geography of the soul.
I think it's leaning more toward that. Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of, not stylistically, but in terms of a theme? I think the song is called Muhlenberg County. Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County where the will you do? Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late for asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train has messed it all up.
And Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River, where paradise lay? Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train is hauled it away.
I think you've mentioned this one before, yeah. It's an environmental song, but it's also a little bit, what was that one where I think it was Crest or something. It was one where like, oh, sorry, babe, I have to go to the mainland for work. And we don't know if he's leaving her there.
Mainland Blues.
Oh, Mainland Blues, yeah. I get some Mainland Blues out of this as well.
For me, I feel like it is nominally about the change in a physical place, but that is acting as a bit of a metaphor for the loss of innocence experienced when we leave our childhood.
Okay, yeah.
And I think it's also an environmental song.
I do like that. I forgot about that part.
I walked down that boulder road through a child's eyes, saw places where I used to go, where I crawled barefoot with a fishing pole to the rock that overlooked the steelhead hole.
I walked down that boulder road through a child's eyes, saw places where I used to go, where I crawled barefoot with a fishing pole to the rock that overlooked that steelhead hole.
I love the AAAA rhyming structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gives it that childlike vibe in a way. Mm-hmm. This also very much reminds me of my childhood. You know, when I was a kid, there was no internet. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know about the world outside of the forest. And so, you know, all of my time was spent going down to the trout stream barefoot and poking around, fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, likewise. I mean, we crawled through the woods behind our house.
Sure.
Ticks were like not a thing back then, apparently, because we never had a tick on us. Now you can't go outside and cough without getting a tick.
That's why I never cough outside.
You hold it in, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so steelhead is a trout. It's a type of fish.
Sure.
So the steelhead part made me originally think Silver River turning blue. The river was so full of steelhead
that it was silver,
and it is no longer, and that now it's blue. Yeah.
Interesting.
And that kind of works a little bit later on. We'll get there. But I think also just a silver river is just an idyllic.
Yes.
descriptor for a river. You see the sun, this gorgeous sun glinting off this river, and it reflects in such a way that it looks silvery. I don't think it's necessarily the fish per se, but there's a fairy tale-ness about it.
Yes, absolutely. But I love the interpretation of the fish. I mean, that's something that, we hear about in old songs. The shoals, what's that old one? The shoals of herring.
Yeah.
Describing seas so thick with fish that you could almost, it felt like you could actually step out of the boat and walk on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If we take a biographical approach to this,
okay.
Ian grew up in Blackpool, UK, on the west coast of England. Blackpool is situated between the river Wear and the river
there.
Ribble.
Oh, Ribble River.
Ribble River and the river Wear.
Okay.
There are undoubtedly lots of smaller streams and estuaries and other things that flow around. I just see a town named there, Little Plumpton, which is ironically what my doctor calls me whenever I come in.
And next up, Little Plumpton. Come on in. Oh, Doc. I wish you wouldn't call me that.
Let me roll over to you.
Hello. Yeah, this could very easily be the time before Ian was so engulfed in creating music that he would just, and engulfed in not creating boiler fluid, that he went out and played in the cricks,
Well, sure. And when you're a kid, those little spaces that you find are so important. They're so magical. They become part of your inner world. And you really do carry those around with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. I can still vividly see the forts that we built when I was a kid.
It's where you gain a sense of independence. It's where you gain a sense of a relationship with the world. Mm-hmm. So it's very important.
Yeah.
If we skip over the Silver River turning blue line for a moment, we go on to the next one. It was a small town in a smaller world.
It was a small town in a smaller world.
I love that. The town is small, but the world outside the town is equally small.
So that tells me that the town is the world. That's all he knows is the town. That's his world.
Right, totally. Just a black dot on an old map with its edges curled.
I have an utterly nonsensical Velvet Mondegreen here.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Is it a bear? Is he shaking his hair? Is it Velvet Mondegreen?
Just a black dot on an old map with its head cheese curled.
Oh, with its head cheese curled, yes.
I swear it sounds just like it. I can't, even knowing the proper lyrics, I can't not hear head cheese.
That's really funny.
Just a black dot on an old map with its head cheese curled.
Just a note about England's rivers. There are so many of them. And a lot of them are connected with canals because in the days before the railroad, they were the main way, the main method of transporting goods. And there's actually a type of boat that I think is pretty much specific to England called the narrow boat. And it's literally like 7 feet wide, 8 feet wide, and could be up to, 30, 40 feet long.
Wow.
They're designed just to navigate those waterways, and some of those waterways are absolutely stunning. Some people now live on narrow boats and travel up and down the canals and the rivers.
Oh, cool.
But you can get from all the way in the south of England all the way up to Scotland just on these river systems.
So that'll be our next UK trip?
Yes, exactly.
We'll narrowboat it. So just for clarification, a canal is basically a man-made stretch of water.
It is.
Path of water, specifically. Yeah.
Yes. Or just a black dot on an old map with its edges curled, where they built their industries on the edge of town, leaching chemicals from underground. Now it's true, that Silver River turning blue.
Where they build their industries on the edge of town, leaching chemicals from underground. Now it's true, that Silver River turning blue.
This reminds me, I know that I told you about this at some point, but I had gotten Katie a map of England from the 1850s.
Yeah.
And we were talking with her parents, and we were, they were like, oh, does it have this town on it? Oh, does it have this town on it? And we were finding it. And then I said, oh, I wonder if Ellesmere Port, let's see if we can find Ellesmere Port. And everybody, her parents and a couple of people were like, oh no, it's not going to be on the map. And I was like, why are you so certain? They were like, Ellesmere Port didn't exist at that point because it was a town that was built up along with industrialization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it makes total sense that if we are thinking biographically, Ian's childhood, he would have really seen that transition from it being a small town to, oh, okay, well, there's nothing here, so we can just put a couple factories.
Right. Yeah.
And improve the economy.
Yes. Economy first. Yeah.
I had interpreted that the silver turning blue was a visual for the pollution.
Yeah.
We have the leaching chemicals. In the early part of the last century, there wasn't really any regulation around dumping chemicals into waterways.
Yeah.
In this country, the EPA was established because people started realizing, oh, maybe this completely unhinged, letting companies do whatever they want, maybe that's not great for everybody.
But they're people, and they have rights, Omen.
Right.
So, yeah, I think looking at verse 1 and verse 2, the Silver River turning blue could be the fish going away. And then the second one could be that the pristineness, the pristinicity of this idyllic river getting funky, getting blue algae, getting all of that. So there are different variations of this change for the worse.
I remember hearing, I think my mom was telling me about, she saw growing up that there was a paint factory upstream of a certain place. And one day they were like, oh my God, the river is such beautiful colors.
Oh.
And it was literally paint.
Yeah.
But this also makes me think, in the context of the band Jethro Tull, blue could be a reference to the blues, as in the river is becoming sad.
Yeah, I mean, because it's being filled with chemicals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a sad river.
I got the blues and also red 45.
Don't drink me.
Don't drink me.
Then we get a teeny tiny little bridge here. Just got a late reaction, face reality and stare it down. Sometimes it's harder hanging on, much easier to look around, but I need that job.
I just got a late reaction, face reality and stare it down. Sometimes it's harder hanging on, much easier to look around, but I need that job.
And that is mainland blues for me.
Yes, totally. That lyric could almost fit into any number of songs in this environmental industrialization catalog subfolder. I do think that there, face reality and stare it down. Sometimes it's harder hanging on. I do think that there is this sense of, I know that this place was a certain way when I was a kid and I have that memory, and now I'm seeing it changed. And there's a difficulty, there's an incongruency there that produces tension, that can produce a lot of emotions.
Right, but you have to swallow it down.
Right, it's harder hanging on to your memory of it. And so it's easier just to say, well, it's all trash now, and I'm going to take the job at the factory because I need the money.
Right, yeah.
The factory that's actively polluting the river.
Right, the cause of my disjointed loss of childhood.
And whether it's literally taking a job at the factory that is specifically polluting the river of your childhood, or if it's buying something that has a widget in it, and that widget was made by the factory, then you're still complicit in the destruction of the environment.
Right. Yeah. What's the just got a late reaction? Is that like, oh, I just realized, basically?
That could be.
I should have recognized this earlier, but now I see it for what it is, but I can't do anything about it because I have to take this job.
I think that makes sense. That's kind of the direction that I was going in with it.
It's just a turn of phrase I've never heard before.
Or has everyone else reacted to the chemicals earlier and he's reacting late?
He just broke out in hives when everybody has been throwing up already. Yeah.
I done told you you'd get boils.
Don't drink me.
Swim at your own risk.
The new hit song is Don't Drink Me.
Please don't drink me.
Add that to your list of things to write after the cat poetry.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And then one more verse after this. We've got a repetition of the first verse and our bridge again, but we've got one more original verse.
Well, this place is no city. We're just small players here, like a million other heroes drinking poor man's beer. We know it's right. We're just living it wrong. But there's no easy answer in the green man's song. What do you do when your river's turning blue?
Well, this place no city. We're just small players here, like a million other heroes drinking poor man's beer. We know what's right. We're just living it wrong. But there's no easy answer in the green man's song. What do you do when your river's turning blue?
Wow, lots there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's start with there's no easy way to answer in the green man's song.
We know the Green Man. We know that reference.
Songs from the Wood, Botanic Man.
Yep.
The Green Man, Jack in the Green. The Green Man is the spirit of all living things in nature.
Yeah. The embodiment of nature and earth.
I almost get the impression that this is a memory of coming back to Blackpool to play a concert. Long after he had left,
right?
But before they had really become big and kind of having that like, oh my God, this has really changed more than I realized.
Yeah. Well, this place is no city. We're just small players here. It's still a small town.
Sure.
Like a million other heroes drinking poor man's beer. Everybody here is working in the factory. We get paid peanuts.
Right.
While the factory owners are rolling in it. We know what's right. We're just living it wrong.
Oh, I love that.
It's just like sometimes it's harder to hang on, much easier to look around. It's like, I know what I should be doing, but I can't because I need to pay my bills.
I've heard that expressed so many times by so many people in so many different walks of life. Yeah, we know this is destroying the environment, but what am I going to do?
Right.
I have to feed my family. I have to feed my crippling addiction to Oxycontin.
Yeah. West Virginia.
Actually, some of those meth heads are surprisingly industrious recyclers. They will tear all the copper out of a house without a second thought. That's recycling.
They're really thinking about the environment there. Yeah. What can they take out of the environment to pawn for meth? Yeah. What do you do when your river's turning blue? Yeah, what do you do? What can you do about it? The answer is work in the factory.
Well, actually, the answer is join your local native plant society.
There you go.
And other ecological efforts.
Mm-hmm.
And get involved, even on a small level. If you can save one drop of water, you've saved an entire world. That's an old Hebrew or Jewish proverb. He who saves one life saves the entire universe. He who takes one life destroys an entire universe. Something like that. I've seen Schindler's List.
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
That's a bit of a downer.
It's a big downer. It's very good, though.
It's very good. But I do think that often our generation, and probably every generation, gets kind of environmental paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, we have the sense that there is nothing I can do, and so I'm just going to not do anything because I can't do something that's going to make a huge difference that's going to be visible. But
Right.
even doing something little is better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
If you plant one native plant, you'll see a bee come and go, "Oh, pollen, delicious." For that bee, you've made a big difference. I'm going to tell my friends about this.
Bees in Florida are very different than upstate New York, clearly.
Yeah.
Overall theme here, I mean, I think we've covered it, right?
I think it is the overlapping theme of environmental change, industrialization, and the recognition that time for us mortals only goes in one direction.
And being swept away by something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
Even if it's something as negative as this factory pumping out moose juice.
And what is And what is the metaphor of the river? Could we not say that our lives are rivers and that our lives can become polluted and turn blue?
Yeah, of course. It's capitalism. Capitalism is the factory. Our pristine river is depressed and doesn't want to get up in the morning because of this factory polluting our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stick it to the man. I guess that's what I'm saying. Eat the rich.
Eat the rich, stick it to the man, plant native plants.
Buy low, sell high.
Never look a gift horse in the mouth.
Lift with your legs, not your back.
Yeah. Even better, lift with somebody else's legs. Wait a minute. No, that's capitalism.
Use their back if you need to. That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as their legs are consenting.
Nick, what are we consenting to talk about next week?
Next week, we are continuing our trek through this album. We are still on disc 2. We will forever be on disc 2 going forward. This is track number 6. This is Crew Nights.
Crew Nights.
This song was actually one of the remasters that came out on the Broadsword remaster that dropped this year. Or last year.
Well, that will be exciting. Until next week, why don't you crawl barefoot with a fishing pole down to the rock that overlooks our online Discord community available through our Patreon with a membership where you can catch all kinds of steelheads in the form of lovely conversations with other Tull skulls.
I just got a late reaction.
Oh,
I'm Nick McGill.
there's a tablet for that. Okay. I need that job, I'm Omen Thomas Sade.
Like a million other heroes, we are the Feckless Momes.
And it's time to face reality and stare it down. This is Talk Tull to Me.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and now we have a returning performer. You all hate him, and you all love him. Lift up your broken bottles and give a warm hatred welcome for Little Plumpton.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I floated in here yesterday. Well, I flowed through Little Plumpton, picked up some of them hydrofluorocarbons in my bed. Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I flowed through Little Plumpton. Yes, and I picked up some of them sweet, sweet fluorocarbons in my riverbed. Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Oh, baby, please, please don't drink me, 'cause I'm full of sulfur dioxide and lead. Oh, yeah, play it, Jimmy. Oh. Over here on the horn, we got Muddy Slide Jimmy. He's banned in 37 countries. Over here on the bass guitar, we got Mud Skipper Jones. He plays the bass so good because he's got 6 fingers on each hand. And finally on the drum kit over here, we've got none other than Warles Catforth the Third. He is a real live crawfish.
Snap, snap.
And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, to tip your bartender and that Talk Tell to Me is a proud member of the Feckless Moans Audio Network. Time to take my hepatitis tablets.